Agent of Chaos, Finn Taylor.
Agent of Chaos. I like that.
Professional troublemaker.
Yeah.
Back in Glasgow, this is your hometown, right? You spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, I grew up. I left here when I was 7. My mum's Scottish. Their mum and dad were teachers. They taught here at Hutchison's Grammar. Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah.
I went there for 2 years, and then we moved down to Oxford, which is why I sound like this. But I sounded like you till I was 7.
Really?
Yeah.
It's an origin story of one posh school to another, right? Your parents were teachers at private school.
Yeah, well, Hutchison's not his grammar school, wasn't it?
Private school here. Hutchinson in the south is a private school, isn't it?
No, Hutchinson. I mean, if it's a grammar school, it's a grammar school.
Yeah,
but I imagine it's definitely one of the posher schools in Glasgow. I imagine the bar's quite low for what a posh school is here. There was a McDonald's opposite it. So when my dad would take us home, he'd take us to the McDonald's opposite, which kind of, again, you start to see the like Glasgow industrial obesity complex straight from the school to the McDonald's to home.
Obesity complex.
Yeah. But no, the school we moved to in Oxford is one of the biggest fee-paying schools in the country. And Mum got a job running the girls' boarding house, so we moved we lived in a boarding house. So they got free accommodation for like 5 years, but the catch was that we had to live in a girls' boarding house. So it probably scarred me enough that I'm now this agent of chaos, as you put it.
Did you get like tuition there as well?
Yeah, we got in. It wasn't completely for free, but it was so heavily reduced, the fees, that my mum and dad were like, we're not even paying rent. Like, we got free accommodation. And bear in mind, my parents were like, Mum was a music therapist, Dad was in a band, then they got pregnant with me, and then he was like, "Oh fuck, this band's not working." Or it was good enough to make a living, but not when you've got a kid in the way. So then he did a teacher's training course, and so they were just like, free accommodation with the job in Oxford, great. And so that's why they were able to buy a house. Is they did that for 5 years, but it meant that I lived in a girls' boarding house for between the ages of 7 and 13. They got me out just as the puberty kicked in, and they were like, "You can't have him in here. It's the damage he's going to do." So yeah.
Given that these fee-paying schools are like almost like a conveyor belt to politics or investment banking, given that you've become a comedian, were you a bit of a black sheep? So I know you started comedy very young. You used to debate.
Yeah, I was 18 when I started stand-up. I've been doing stand-up since I was 18, basically.
And I think I've heard you say that like you do quite a lot of debating in those.
My secondary school, yeah.
You used it as basically like a kind of roast battle or like a stand-up
basically,
gig.
Yeah. I got told off by the headmaster when I was 14, 13 for sort of doing a 5-minute speech that was my attempt at stand-up. And I got told off in front of the whole year for being crude and toilet humour and all this sort of stuff. But then, because my dad worked there, it's a very interesting kind of political environment where I sort of could only get in trouble so much for things that weren't actually that serious. So I ended up getting the headmaster actually ended up apologising to me in his office for telling me off. And that was when I was 14. So I do think there's a correlation between that and my sort of what I do now, in that it's kind of fine.
For comedians, it usually takes 20 years until an old tweet is resurfaced. Then they get cancelled. But you got cancelled at 14.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Started early.
Yeah, and then you're operating in the kind of freedom of being cancelled already.
Were there career advisors at those schools where they were trying to usher you into university?
Oxbridge was a big because my parents both went to Cambridge. They wanted me to go to Cambridge. I remember going and looking around there, and I was like, I don't like this. And I also didn't want to go to where they went to university. And then when you grow up in Oxford, you're like, I don't want to just stay here. So no, I didn't apply. I mean, I was told that I should, but I didn't. I mean, I might not even have got in. Who knows? But
I grew up in a council estate and went to a state school. There's fights every day. There's 13-year-olds selling and taking drugs.
Yeah.
What are some of the kind of facets of fee-paying school? What type of world is it? Any funny stories? Any idiosyncrasies from?
Well, it's funny. The kids are. I think you have just as much likelihood of getting damaged, just in a different way, isn't it? It's I do think there's a kind of Overton window for money where you do the least damage, and if you go out of that up or down, you could still damage someone. mean, you know, what my mum was the fire she was trying to put out was that a lot of these kids, they're you know, their parents are earning so much money. Let's face it, normally one of their parents, probably their dad, is earning a lot of money in an investment bank, and so it isn't around. The kids are boarding from age 7, and so they're kind of outsourcing the childcare.
Mm.
So it doesn't matter how good my mum was at making them feel like this was a sort of family away from family. They're still ultimately being kind of severed from their mum and dad, who don't, and a lot of them didn't really sort of care about them at weekends. They wouldn't come and say hi. So there's a big emotional damage that those people are doing. And it's very easy to say, oh, well, they'll be fine because they've got money. But I think we're sort of wise enough to know now that people with a lot of money can be the unhappiest. And I've got no idea, but I'd be interested to see the stats in whatever metric you want to choose: depression, suicide, whatever, between the extremes of income.
Which is interesting because you have all of the stigma of going to like a fee paying school, but you don't have the money.
None of the capital. Yeah.
But you had the parental support that they might not have had.
Yeah, so actually you're right. Maybe I'm a very lucky, very best of both worlds. Although saying that, one of the main reasons we left, obviously it's cartoonish to suggest that I was like the Incredible Hulk about to sexually pop out and wreak havoc on 50 preteen girls. But one of the main reasons was that
That's still to come.
That's still to come. We're still waiting for that moment. Was that I just wasn't, like, my mum was like an on duty, when the term time was happening, she was just on call. And so it was like a girl would come, 12-year-old girl, knock on my front door. I'd answer it and she'd go, "Where's your mum? I'm having my first period." And I'd be like, what? I don't know. So we never saw my mum for like 5 years because she was just constantly working. I mean, the flip side is that we had, because they were teachers, you had school holidays, so you actually hung out with them then, I guess. So it's not that big a sob story, but I think it was constantly like, you're never not at work when when you live there. So, but yeah, no, I'm not in any way as neglected as some of those kids that went to that school.
What were you like academically? Did you stick in at school?
Did I what?
Stick in at school.
Stick in?
Yeah.
Does that mean like do well?
Do well, like
apply
yourself.
Get stuck in.
Yeah.
I think I was probably quite annoying in that I found the work like easy enough that I could do it, but then I started distracting everyone else and trying to cause trouble. So, but I was sort of stimulated by it, I guess. I wasn't a complete boff, but I also wasn't a dropout, smoking reefers around the back of the sheds. Yeah.
A lot of comedians have like a troubled origin story, like they were abused or depressed or...
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy Carr likes to go on and say, who was ill, who died? I was like, well, that's just you, mate. That's you. You don't speak for all of us. Yeah, there's not really... I mean, I always knew I wanted to do it, comedy. I wanted to perform. It was apparent from a very early age that I was like a show off and stuff. And I'd never done any kind of psychoanalysis, but I imagine that growing up in that environment with the way you live in the school is probably makes sense to me. That's why I'm like I am. But no one. There was no major death or abuse or whatever.
That's still to come as well.
Again, who knows? Lives are long. Maybe that's yet to come.
Are you still in contact with any of your mates from school?
No, I never. I sort of felt like I found my people at uni. So, because I think my parents were quite good at saying like these schools aren't real life. Like this is a bubble. So I was quite aware of that. So when I went to uni and I got the chance to be like, oh, it's a level playing field, and now I've got to go into the cheapest halls, the self-catered halls, and you meet people who just went to normal school. And I remember the relief of being like, oh, great. I like there are people that aren't this sort of, I don't know, this extreme of privilege and money. I still, that's kind of doing them a disservice because it's kind of quite cartoonish to say that all these private school kids are a certain way, and they're not, of course. But there is an aspect to them that is sheltered from the real world and could continue to be sheltered if they don't. There's a risk with those schools that you just get institutionalized by a corporation, and then you never actually come up for air at all. You never see what someone like what your upbringing might be. Like, and give live comedy, give it its dues, has opened my eyes, or at least it's like I've met people I never would have met if I'd gone into just some kind of normal like white collar profession. You know what I mean?
Because you kind of found your feet in comedy when you were 18 at university. It was like a careers advisor.
No,
Or
there's a comic called Mark Olver
was that a
who
comic?
did stand up. He started stand up with Russell Howard and John Richardson, and he used to be a careers advisor. He's a very successful stand up. He does warm up for pretty much every TV show you know. But he kind of would take people under his wing, and if he saw, the right kind of drive or talent, he would basically make it his mission to help them achieve it. And so I wouldn't be a comic without him. The same could be said of people like I think like John Robbins and Ellis James. They were all, anyone who started in the Southwest in sort of the last 20 years, 25 years, probably owes a debt to Olver in some way. But yeah, I did his open mic night when I was 18, and then he just like took me and a guy called Matt Ewins. You know Matt Ewins? He's pretty crazy. He does pretty well at the Edinburgh Fringe. Crazy, crazy stand up, really funny. But he took us around all these like little village pubs and little community centres in the Southwest doing gigs. And then by the time I left uni, I was getting paid a bit for it, not enough, like £500 a month. And back then you could rent a place in Bristol for £380 a month. So I went, fuck it, I like those odds, I can do maths. And then I was like, right, well, we don't have any money for furniture or really food. So we had like a like a sort of a junkie's flat where you'd have like a big room with a tiny sofa in it and a tiny plant. And you're like, that's all we can afford. But no, you're living the dream, man. It was great.
When you like were at that kind of level whereby money was tight, you were getting paid £500 a month,
Yeah.
and you could maybe see, I don't know if Facebook was a thing then, but you could maybe see your mates that you went to school with become politicians or investment bankers. Did you ever go, you know what, I wish I went down that route instead?
No, because it wasn't. I used to lie awake at night, sort of having existential crises about what I would do if it wasn't comedy. Like I always knew I couldn't do another job. Even during COVID, when my industry entirely shut down, like this is before the big pivot to online, really, or maybe just as it started. But I did a job we were staying at my father-in-law's house during the first lockdown, and there was literally no work. This was before the government support schemes had come in. My wife had a job that was safe, so we were fine. But like I got given a job by a friend of my father-in-law writing copy for an e-scooter business. And within a week, I was like, I quit. I can't do this. I know I have no other income, but I'd rather stare at a wall than do this.
Fuck.
Maybe that's really immature and like, fuck you, man. Fuck you, the system. But I just couldn't take it. So I kind of always had to just work to figure things out myself, I guess.
Did you know you had the potential to become a full-time professional touring internet sensation?
Well,
comedian?
internet sensation, I didn't know. I knew I could. I knew once I saw what stand-up actually was, and that you could make a sort of teacher salary off of just doing live. And once you saw below the tip of the iceberg, and you realize there are hundreds, if not more, thousands of professional stand-up comedians in this country that exist in this like live circuit. I was like, yeah, I can do that. I'm sure I can get good enough to do that. And that's kind of all I wanted to do. And then, Edinburgh Fringe, had some good shows, and then did a bit of TV. But then I sort of started to get TV just at the point where it felt like no one was watching it, or it didn't equal audience in the same way that it maybe did 5 years previously. Or a lot of people sort of like to think, who was the last comedian that did Live at the Apollo and actually got something out of it? Who was that like Indiana Jones hat through the door? I'd say maybe Bill Wang, maybe Sindhu V. I don't know. Like there's the odd one that goes through, but really now it's like, and I'm not saying that just because you've done it means you should have anything from it. But whenever I get in a taxi and you say, I'm a comedian, they go, oh, when are you going to do Live at the Apollo? And I go, I did it 7 years ago. And they go, oh yeah, I haven't watched it in 20 years. You go, right, well then why are you asking me? But no one watches it anymore.
I think people just do it for the pinned post on their Instagram or like the Instagram bio.
Yeah, and it is a massive validating thing. Don't get me wrong. It does, particularly when you start out aged 18 to do it, you're like, oh, I did it. There's an element of that. Then I remember waking up the next day and feeling quite depressed. It was like, oh, right, what do I do now? I'm still got to be a comedian. I didn't complete it. And then you get to just stop, you know? So, yeah, I don't know what the question was.
The route to entry for comedy was one that I didn't really understand. Like, you can look at your mate who's a joiner and understand that they did like an apprenticeship, and after you finish your apprenticeship, you might go self-employed, or if you're an investment banker, you probably join the city in a grad scheme. But I never knew how do you break into comedy? And I never understood that. And I did a comedy course. I thought that was like the rite of passage, but most comedians don't do one of these shitty comedy courses for charity where they rip off UVA tickets.
Yeah, but that I think Greg Davis did a course, and maybe Rod Gilbert did a course, and for them it like gave them the confidence to actually start. I think they always knew they could do it, but they were never. It was putting it off, right? The great thing about stand-up is you just have to do it. And so it attracts people who just do stuff, because if you're always that mate who everyone says you should do it, but you never do it, then you're not it. You know, you just got to do it, and you just have to fail publicly for a long time. And it doesn't stop either. That's what I like about it, is it's constantly humiliating, but it's good. In my very kind of like cold Edinburgh Presbyterian heritage, it's just good to constantly get in that ice bath. Fucking shame. Every tour, right at the start. Fuck, that wasn't good enough. That didn't work. Fuck it. Right. You know, good. Because it means you have to learn how to write an hour every hour you start, you know.
And your hour always begins with like back of the fag packet kind of material. You have to go to like a shitty like open mic on a Tuesday night. Maybe you don't at your level, but some
no, you do.
I think you do.
And I think you get worse if you don't. I think if you don't go out there and eat shit, you can tell, because like it would be very easy for me now to coast on the kind of in jokes of like the pod or you know, just touchstones that people about, you know that find me funny or whatever. But you've got to always be playing to people who are seeing you for the first time, which is what's so tiring about it. But also it's like everyone is a challenge, you know. I
really admire stand-up comedians. I treat them like skateboarders. Like it's one of those things.
I wouldn't put those two together.
You see a skateboarder, right, and they're like failing publicly, and it doesn't make any sense, and then they land the trick, and you're like, oh, that's fucking art.
Yeah, I guess I don't think landing a trick is art.
You still think it's a fat golf?
Yeah. I don't think it was worth the failure. You're still a fat guy who lives with your mum. You know what I mean? I don't think it's not. You know, it's not that he's landed a trick and he's Picasso. Is it? But neither stand up, I must say, neither stand up. But no, I know you're right. There is an analogy there.
Tell me about some of your earlier gigs. Any horror stories? Any funny stories on the road?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. There's not really any like particularly funny stories. It's just a lot of just silence and of, I think, you know, making a woman cry once and then just getting in the car and, you know, driving in the wrong direction for 10 minutes just to get away from it rather than deal with the consequences of what you've done. But it's like it is just. I
hope it was from a joke.
Yeah, it's a numbers game, and even in a, you know, if I'm playing a room of 400 and I make 380 laugh, I've won. You just can't ever really process the fact that you're going to write a bit that absolutely everyone thinks is funny. Like you just. Maybe someone like McIntyre can do that. Maybe. But also you should just be you're playing a percentages game, and there's always going to be a couple of people who don't find it funny or who it sets off a bad thing they went through. But it's kind of on them. Like it's not up to me to do a census of what everyone's pressure points are before the show starts. And so, yeah, in a small room when the joke's not worked out and it's just crass and shit, then yeah, it's bad. But it's such a physical thing. It can't be done academically in your room. It's not like writing a song where you write a song in your bedroom and it doesn't matter if no one's heard it. It's a song. Like if I do a bit in my mirror, I don't know if it's a bit until I do that on stage and they either laugh or they don't, you know?
It's such a strange medium, comedy. It's unlike music or like even like motivational speaking, which is like a performance whereby you can evoke different emotions at the same time, and each emotion could be success. So you could inspire someone through your music, and that's success. You can make someone emotional. Or
you shouldn't really make them laugh, really. No one gets that big by making people piss themselves at how bad the song is.
But like comedy's so binary. It's like funny or it's not. It's
Well,
like yes
it's
or no.
not really an art, it's a craft, really. In that it's like if you're building this table, there are attempts that are tables and attempts that aren't. And it's the same with comedy in that you are trying to make a thing that will elicit a response like 99% of the time. Doesn't matter what's happening in the news or in the room or who's been on before you, like it works every time. That's more of a craft than an art. And I guess the art of it is trying to do that in a way that is sort of unique to you, or that's where the self-expression comes in. But fundamentally, at like a molecular level, it's a craft. And I think that's why there's a sort of ceiling to people who see it as a more, I'm going to take my shoes off and put a fucking ham on my head and be all wackadoo and stuff. There's a ceiling to that because there's less, you're making the audience unsure as to how they're to respond. And there's a place for that, but that's much more artistic than it is craftsman-like, you know?
If comedy is like a craft, then it seems like it can be taught. Like joinery, for
It can be
example.
learned, but then maybe that's where the art comes in that there's a sort of soullessness to someone who's just learned the craft, you know?
Yeah, like how would you go around writing your first bit? Like I interviewed a guy called David Pinsoff, who was the guy that created Cards Against Humanity.
Right.
And he's actually a sociologist, and he said all humor is the deviation from an expectation. And it almost makes it sound a bit like mathematical.
Yeah,
Like
I don't think that's true. I think that's true of like some joke formats, but I don't know how I'd write my first bit, but I could definitely take someone's first bit and go, well, the way this has to work is I could fix it. You know what I mean? I could fix someone's bit. There's things you can do, like put what's the word that you end the sentence on? Make it the funniest sounding word, like blancmange, or that's not got enough hard consonants, so it should, it should have a k or a g. Like it's a very rhythmical, musical form. It's percussive. So all the stuff like that you can get into on a very nitpicky level. But ultimately, if the idea is fucked, then it's not going to work.
what is the roadmap after you write your first bit then? Is it still the same that you would build up into 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour and take it to Edinburgh, try and win some awards, do some comedy contests?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. And that's the great sort of schism that's happening in comedy currently. Certainly when I started, that was what you did. Edinburgh was very important. And now I don't think it's ever been less important, which is good and bad. I think it's good in that there's a more meritocratic, democratic, people like Mo Gilligan were never going to be Edinburgh darlings, but they've done it themselves. They proved that they're deserving of a bigger audience. They've done it themselves. But at the same time, you have people who aren't as good at stand-ups as Mo, or aren't as like intuitively funny as Mo, who have got big followings, and then they're doing live shows even though they haven't done the work or they haven't got the chops for it. And I think there's sort of like the death of taste. We've thrown that baby out with the bathwater of the kind of democracy of it all, in that it's now there's no taste setters, and so if something gets a lot of views, it must be good, Yeah,
there's a TikTokification
sort
of comedy,
and it's good and bad. It's good in that people, people that would never have got a shot 20 years ago can make it happen themselves. But then maybe people were always getting a shot that were crap. I mean, maybe just stuff is just crap, isn't it? Crap stuff's allowed to exist. You're allowed the stuff that you don't like is allowed to exist. Stuff that you think is crap, There's always going to be crap stuff, isn't there?
It's not gatekept by a critic anymore.
No, exactly. And that's why I think Edinburgh is less relevant, is that it used to be you go up there, you get these reviews from journalists, and then you network, and you get an opportunity on TV. But when people stopped really watching TV, or certainly when it stopped, the equation of like TV equals audience, when that broke down, then there was less reason to go to Edinburgh. There was more reason to just make your own stuff, find your own. I think basically what the internet's done is everything is just another video, isn't it? It doesn't matter how much money you spent on it, or whether a 20-team production have made it for Channel 4, or like it's a guy in his bedroom. It gets flattened out into the feed. So it's just another video. So it all gets judged on that, right? It's just how good is the video. And so what do you actually need any of that stuff for in the consumer's mind? you're just judging it on the merits of the video. So, yeah, I think particularly I think TV is a big word. I'm speaking specifically about light-end comedy, which has in a real bind the TV part of that industry. The industry, the internet and live comedy is booming in a way it never has. But TV comedy is in a hard place because I think it's just got more oversight than internet stuff. And I think audiences are now used to a kind of intimacy with podcasts that you just can't recreate on a shiny floor with an audience there and the whole razzmatazz, big shiny head production thing. So
is that also a reason why you feel the need to do these kind of like open mics because you've got such a large cult following through the podcast? If you put on your own show, it'll be people that like your stuff coming to watch you. So the margin for error isn't as greater. Whereas if you go to an unannounced gig, like a top secret, drop in there.
Yeah, you have to do that.
Yeah.
You have to. I mean, we've been having it with the the tour we're doing now for the podcast. It's like it's been a really fun challenge to try and solve. But I really, from the off, wanted to make almost a theatre show because I think podcast and theatre show are like opposites in that podcast is this stripped down, spontaneous chat. It's intimate. You listen to it on your own. You're doing something else while you listen to it. A theatre show is a communal experience that you pay 35 quid to be at in an amazing building. It's like those two things are opposites. So it's like we've been trying to solve, how do we give people that sense that they're still getting what they want, but that it's a theatrical experience and it doesn't feel contrived. That's what we've been trying to work out, and we've started to get it now, and it's really exciting. But it's such a I still think it's very early days in doing internet stuff live, because I think most people that have grown up on just doing internet stuff don't have the instincts for a live show, and they just rock up with some mics and the problem is that the audience will be happy with that because it's more about being in the room with the people that they have in their head for 3 times a week, So it's that thing about the death of taste. It's like an audience will be happy with just being in a room with their favorite podcasts. But how do you make something that is of merit on its own terms,
Has there been any other effects that you've seen from those parasocial relationships that you have with your followers? Do people feel that they know you as much? No, you know them as much as they know you?
Well, they probably do. I mean, even just meeting them afterwards, there's a sort of intensity to the podcast fandom that there isn't. And this podcast is 9 months old. And I was on tour last year, and people were still very excited to meet afterwards and stuff. But I guess with stand-up, it's more, I don't know, people are more like, oh yeah, I like him, I'll go see him. Rather than, oh yeah, we're doing the podcast. Shit, that's my life. That's how I get to and from work. Yeah. I need to be there. It's a different, more urgent feeling. So yeah, it is more intense meeting them afterwards. And we have had a few people who were like, listen, we make a lot of jokes about the Nazis. We can do that. You've got to stop Hitler saluting in the crowd, because it messes the whole thing up. It fucks the whole thing up. Put your arm down. You get too drunk, too excited. You throw the full Roman, and you're like, mate, wind it in. It's a fine line we're walking here, and you're ruining it.
For people that haven't came across Finn versus History or Finn versus
That's
the
quite
Internet,
a good advert for it, what I just said, actually.
How would you summarize both those shows?
Finn versus History.
And
the Internet.
Both.
Finn versus the Internet was the first one. That's sort of like, put simply, I'm in character as someone who doesn't really understand what the internet is, and I'm asking someone who's big on the internet what they do. But really, it's a scripted interview show where it's roast jokes, essentially. And so it's similar to Between Two Ferns, but they're not in on it. Or they're not always in on it. Between Two Ferns is obviously the actor has to look sad, has to look angry. We don't tell our guests we just say, do what you want. There's no right or wrong answer, and the episode will be the one you give us. I think the people that watch the show in clips like the ones that are more awkward, and the people that watch the whole episodes like it when the guest plays along and they show that they've got a sense of humor about themselves. And I guess in the full episodes are maybe more like the Ali G show used to be, where people like it when someone clearly doesn't take themselves too seriously. Which I think more and more, and that's part of the reason I wanted to start the show, is that I was joining social media having not done it, having realised that this is where an audience was going to be, and what did I want to do on it. I didn't want to just do a podcast or like videos of me in my bedroom talking. But I was like, there are all these people with massive followings, and they're so tightly controlled because they control it. So wouldn't it be fun to get them into a space where they think it's just another podcast, but actually I'm trying to fuck them up. And obviously it's become this sort of different thing, now we're sort of only really doing it when we have a really big guest that's really exciting, and we can, have these try and have these big cultural moments like the Bonnie Blue episode.
What is the pre-recording chat like before you hit record?
Totally depends on the guest. What's crazy about that show is that, it's essentially a TV production that we just put on YouTube. So we're writing the script for like 2 weeks before. We're thinking of stunts. We've got choreographing these mad things. We're getting stupid props made. And we have 2 hours with this person, if we're lucky. And we have to get everything that we think is funny about them or what they do or their world in those 2 hours. And we have to get it in one take, because it's always better when their reaction is their actual reaction and we don't have to do it again. So for some guests, they're like, oh yeah, this gets numbers. My mate said it'd be good. And you're like, okay, let's see how you react. Some guests are real, they're in on it and they just want to laugh along and they love it. And then some guests I think they struggle to know how to play it, and it comes off as awkward, and there's only so much we can do with that. And I always prefer the ones where they succumb to the silliness of it, but they're under no obligation to, and they don't have to. And it's kind of what I hoped I knew it wouldn't happen, but I just hoped with Bonnie Blue, I thought if there's any way in which you can laugh at all judgment aside, the absurdity of what you've done, the absurdity of the numbers, then that would be amazing. And she gets attacked so much on podcasts that I don't think she was ever going to not put her defenses up. So
she leaned right into it. She was cracking, she was very self-deprecating, I thought.
Yeah, I guess once you ran through 1,000 blokes in a day, there's not much that can ruffle your feathers. Not a bloke in a leather jacket's going to do. But yeah, but then Finn versus History is a podcast with me and Horatio, who created Internet with me, and Vittorio, and who directs Internet. And that's a history podcast, but it's hosted by 2 comedians who are very liberal with what actually happened and how worthwhile bits of history are. And the tagline for it is the show for people who like history but don't care what actually happened. Because I felt like there wasn't a properly funny history podcast. And I felt an increasing sense that blokes my age, mid-30s, they were sort of admitting to me, they're like, I've started listening to The Rest is History, as if it was like another step on their inevitable downturn to middle age. And I was like, that's interesting. You're listening to it, but you're self-aware about how it's kind of funny that you're listening to it. And I was doing the similar thing. And I did a history degree. I've always been kind of, there's always been a dormant level of history obsession. And then just Horatio had the similar thing, and we did these sort of pilot episodes on our Patreon, and they went really well. The clips went really well, and we thought, this is exciting. This feels fun. I reckon we could do this. And then we built a set and put suits on because we thought it's funny to look like academics, and no one does podcasts in suits, which was, that'd be funny. And now the sheer amount of suits we have is insane. We have like 30 suits, and we have to try and wear a different combination of tie, shirt, suit every episode. I mean, we never meant to do 3 a week. We just started at it to get going, and then it's just not stopped growing. So we're just keeping it up, and it's become the main thing I do, certainly this year. So yeah, it's got way out of hand, and it's so fun to do.
And not to call you rich, but the economics of it are incredible.
This year's been very good, David.
We look at the Patreon numbers.
Yeah,
and I've done the maths.
Yeah,
I'm an accountant by trade.
Yeah. Well, I started a production company when I started the Patreon back in January 2024, and that was for internet. So that was just mainly to make internet. And then now history has gone so well that the production company is hiring out, we've got full-time staff, we've got a studio, we're getting a bigger office and an edit suite, and we're now trying to take on like really ambitious productions so I can just make more stuff. So
Finn versus politics, Finn versus football, these kind of spin-offs would be...
yeah, I could do a kind of incel goal hanger thing. I'm more excited by going into other mediums. Like I mean, there's a constant discussion about, do we develop other podcasts? I think, as you know, podcasts are so much work, and ours has worked and is working. And I don't know if we have the bandwidth or energy to take on another one that maybe doesn't work as well, but is the same amount of work. I'm more excited about branching into other things that this country hasn't really pulled off properly.
What are they? Can you give them away?
I mean, it's very, very early days, but I've got a long-term ambition to make a sort of British South Park. And so that's what we're trying to do. But it's very early stages. And there's other projects, like a sort of a travel thing maybe. And yeah, but the production, what's great about the success is that we can actually make more ambitious stuff. And I've never really been in it for the money, and it's sort of quite bewildering actually, because I don't know what to, I don't understand money in the way that some people do. You see, they go, oh, you put this here and you do that, and I'm just like, I just don't. Okay, don't delete all. Just don't delete all. That's what, But what's exciting is that I'm more like, well, with that we can actually hire a team of animators to fucking, animate Hitler's stag do or whatever it is, So it's really exciting time for the company, and kind of the sky's the limit. And then just the fucking size of the audience. We put this tour on sale in April, and we're in October now, and we're like, these shows sold out within pretty much a week. Most of them didn't actually go to general sale.
I had to beg you for tickets today.
Yeah, most of them didn't. Most of them just sold out on the Patreon. And so, we could do the Albert Hall, which would be fucking hilarious. I mean, the idea that like our podcast would do the Albert Hall is in itself a joke. So the ways we could, play with that is so exciting creatively. So
have you seen an uplift in your like stand-up special numbers and your raw stand-up material and your gigs and your tours and your tickets?
I have, yeah. I mean, I haven't done any stand. I've hardly done any stand-up this year because the podcast has been everything, and I put a special out and that did very well. But the whole point of me starting putting stuff on YouTube was to get people to my specials. But now the other stuff's taken off so much. I also think there's a thing of like it's changed what it means to be a comedian now. When I started, it was you do stand-up. And maybe if you were a comic actor, people would call you a comedian, but they would probably say, I'm not a comedian, I don't do stand-up. Now I think if you're a podcaster, if you're a funny podcaster, you might not call yourself a comedian, but I think other people would. And so there's a future in which comedians spend more of their time podcasting and less their time doing actual stand-up. I don't know. I mean, podcasting is so intense. If you're doing it 2 a week or 3 a week or whatever.
But at the same time, it doesn't require you to travel to Norwich.
Well, the studio's 10-minute cycle from my house. I've got 2 toddlers. It's, I'm around this year. So I've spent very little time in the marital doghouse this year.
What does your wife think about what you do?
She's got a fruitier sense of humor than me. This is what everyone thinks. Everyone's like, "Oh, I wonder what his wife thinks." I'm the acceptable face of my wife's sense of humor. Like, she's a backbencher of the party that I'm leading, right? Her accents are way worse than mine, right? Don't patronize her and think she's not the same. So, I mean, obviously she's into it. I don't think the marriage would be able to. The amount of things I've said about my sort of cartoon creature of a wife, that it must be said isn't her. But then that's the other thing. I've always used social media and stuff as like, it's just for comedy. I have no desire to spill my guts, fucking emotionally seppuku myself all over social media, taking photos of me with my kids at a pumpkin patch. I want a private life and a professional life, and it's very easily demarcated for me. And there is a whole industry around sort of like trauma porn, basically. You know, the Diary of a CEO thing. I don't know. This podcast isn't that, but it's probably
got bits of it.
It's got bits of it, but as in you're wanting people to open up, and then you can put a short out with some strings, and it's an emotional thing. But when that is all performed on social media, it's like, I think people are smart enough to realize that that's kind of emotional manipulation, and it's performative trauma, and no one is separating the social media from their actual just lives of them just living normally.
Because they get validated from it as well.
Of course they do. I totally understand the dopamine, you know, the whole call and response thing. But if your life is, I'm a family influencer, then you can't actually live as a family, because any precious moment, you're like, fuck, I need to broadcast this so that I can advertise.
CPM on this is
exactly.
Like 40 quid.
I need to like gentrify, privatize my family life in order to sell that number to advertisers. That's kind of what the system is.
Have you came across a guy called Darren McGarvey?
No.
He wrote a book called, just out last month. He was on the show a couple weeks ago. He wrote a book called Trauma Industrial Complex, which is all about this. I think you'd love it.
There you go.
Yeah, just listen to the episode.
Yeah, I probably will.
Yeah, he's a good guy, but it's a really good book. You were punched on stage. An old gag.
Yeah,
subtle segue.
Pushed.
With a fist.
Pushed with a fist in the chest, but by a middle-aged woman. So, yeah, it was very, very funny. It must be said. So I was in Exeter on my last tour, and the last tour was the first tour that like we just kept adding dates. We couldn't add enough dates. Everything was selling out. It was the dream tour from that perspective. And crucially, everyone knew what they were coming to. It's the first time where you're filling a room and they all know what they're going to get, which means you can just sort of start as you wish to go on. You don't have to like butter them up with some crowd work or some, you know, cutesy local stuff. Anyway, I think the first joke of that show was, oh, I'm sorry I look like shit. I've spent the day running after a toddler. And I go to someone in the front row, do you have kids? And he go, no. I'm like, yeah, me neither. I'm a pedo, that's me. And then, so literally I've been on stage for a minute, and then a woman just starts kicking off. And then I'm like, oh no, it's an anti-pedo activist. and then she's the louder she's getting, and she's kind of like leaning through the door. Then the whole crowd like, whoa! And I basically turned it into like a pro-pedo rally. And then she is obviously, as I was saying earlier, it's obviously hitting some buttons from something she's gone through. Fair enough. But, and maybe she was, also it's unclear with us whether she was in the wrong room. Maybe she was meant to go to the cinema next door, or anyway. She comes on stage and everyone's like, ooh. And because it's Devon, the roadie's like, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. Fuck it. We don't need security. Then she just comes over and just like punches me in the chest. And everyone's like, hit her back. And I'm like, the optics of me punching a middle-aged woman on stage, not good. Aside from the morality of it.
There must have been a moment where you thought, I could get away with this because of your cancellation at 14 and you thought you were immortal. You must have thought, like, I can do anything, even self-defense.
But I just don't think that the cancellation thing, you know, that is, it's basically, you never really get cancelled for a joke. You get put on the naughty step by people that were never going to come see you anyway. You get cancelled if there's this kind of unfulfilled justice, right?
Like a Russell Brand.
Like Russell Brand, like Louis C.K. thing. You know, you have people who you've done something that is either criminal or like borderline, and people of your audience go, I don't think I can enjoy what you do now. Whereas like Jimmy Carr's Holocaust thing, that was a joke he'd written for people that come to see him, and then someone films a clip of it and puts it out on Holocaust Memorial Day, and it's like, well, you completely changed the context of that sentence now, because now you've made that outrageous.
Yeah.
So, and Jimmy, and then obviously the LBC lot went mad, and Jimmy had, 3 months of probably keeping quiet, but then he's, fair play, off to Riyadh. Fuck it. Do you know what I mean? It's
What's your opinion on that? The Riyadh Comedy Festival, I was meaning to ask.
Well, I wasn't offered.
If you were offered, would you go?
Probably not, but more because I know myself and know that I'd make a joke, I'd get into trouble. And if you get in trouble out there, I believe it's quite bad. I believe cancellation out there is not just some tweets. It's choppy briefcase time. And so I wouldn't go, but it's very easy for me to say that as someone who didn't get offered it. I know someone who got offered it, British act who got offered it and said no. And to be fair, it like, I think if they were going to go, it would have had to just be more money. Like, it's got to be life-changing money. And that's what I saw.
What were the economics of it? No, I don't want you to expose who it was and how much they were offered, but was it good?
Well, I think it was something like 80 grand, which for someone who's touring, you know, if you're a big touring act, it's like, I guess you have to think about it. And I suppose if you don't have to think about it, because it's so much more than you could make, then maybe you've got a decision to make. And I've listened to the response, the people who went saying, you know, the government's not the people, and it's true. I guess it's like people. If you're Bill Burr, I think that was an unwise move because your act is so sort of tub thumping, like little person, like democratic, and that kind of changes the act a bit, almost in my head. Similar in the way to when the Louis C.K. thing came out. I remember thinking, oh, I've always thought you were being the worst version of yourself on stage. And so now I find it difficult to suspend the disbelief. And I can still enjoy stuff he does. And, you know, there'll be people saying that's because you're a man and you haven't been threatened. And you're probably right. Yeah. But I'm definitely not as big a fan as I would have been if that hadn't come out, or if that hadn't happened. Because there's just an interference in your enjoyment of it. Because you're like, I don't, you know. And maybe that's what the Riyadh thing's done to Bill Burr. Jimmy, I mean, Jimmy doesn't fucking care. Yeah. He's always fair. And if you're just like, I'm a comedian, then who fucking cares? You know? So it's interesting. I don't really have a set opinion on it one way or the other. I'm someone who, to be honest, I hear anything that sounds clever and well thought out, and I go, oh yeah, that's good. That's a good point. You know, so I don't know, but I think it's probably been more damaging for some people than it is others because of their act.
Talking about doing absurd comedy gigs for money, you used to warm up Deal or No Deal.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Pointless and a few others.
I did early on when I'd sort of been full time for about a year, and I was skint. Mark Olver, got me doing warm up for Deal or No Deal, which was shot in Bristol. Which, if you're like comfortable on stage and you can MC, it's doable. But it is making old ladies clap, and it is pretty demoralising. And I hated it quite quickly. And
worse than corporate gigs?
I don't really get offered corporate gigs, funnily enough. I'm not really a corporate guy.
I wonder why.
My entire personality is a series of HR violations, so I'm not really sure why you're asking me if I do corporate gigs. I've maybe done one for like a lawyer who had seen me and he was in charge of booking. And it didn't go that well. Obviously. Because it's a fucking company environment, like, you know. So that's the other thing. I was never going to get corporate gigs. So I did warm up for Pointless as well, which was a great gig. I enjoyed that a lot. But it is very, very different to what I do now. It's just kind of being polite to old ladies and making them clap and stuff.
One of my favourite, I don't know if it was a paid gig or maybe an unpaid gig, and this is why it was such a success, was your NFL Britain interview.
Yeah.
Did they expect you to play that like ignorant character?
No. I mean, I don't know what they expected. I didn't, to be fair, I didn't expect it to be this. I just thought I was going to get paid a lot, and then I didn't. Just said you're getting paid in exposure, and I thought, well, fuck it, then I don't care about this. I'm just going to go on and say what I really think. And then they were just so American about it. But again, it's that other thing we were talking about earlier. It's like they sent me the footage, or a guy sent me the footage so that I could then put it up. And suddenly it's like a thing. If no one had done that, it wouldn't be anywhere, would it? You know, because TV is so disposable now in a way that it wasn't 20 years ago. So
I have a tool. I'm not sure if you guys use it in house, but I think it's called like vidIQ, where you can look at the data analytics of other videos when you go on YouTube. It's like a kind of Chrome plugin. And when I was watching it a few weeks ago, most of the views came from the last 3 to 6 months on that clip, I believe.
Yeah,
Or a large proportion of
someone changed the thumbnail
it.
3 months ago.
But that would never happen with TV. You know, like it's gone and forgotten.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's like you can always be discovered, you know, which is again, it's another good thing about it.
One thing I realized about how unserious you take the kind of financial aspect of your podcast and how absurdly big the numbers is that you named the production company Fumble Risky, which
Yeah.
is that moment, that really famous line or famous moment
Yeah.
at the end of that interview.
Yeah. And the logo is a plane crashing into a TV set, like 9/11ing TV. That's to me, that's kind of that's the message of the company. It's like I mean, currently, you may have to edit this out. I don't know, but we'll see. Currently, a commissioner at a major comedy, at a major channel in the UK is trying to get me to do something, but like I'm in a position where I'm only going to do it on my terms because it's like just not worth it. Like I would sort of be doing them a favor because it's like, why would I, if I've got the resources to make what I want to make and have full executive control over the edit, and I've got this mechanism where I know it can always find new people, why would what's the point in giving up creative control to an audience that I don't then have any kind of way of holding on to? Like, just doesn't make sense.
I can't imagine the economics of that would make sense either. Like TV's dying. Like when I looked at the numbers behind the Patreon, it'd be very difficult for a TV house to pay you that at the moment.
Well, I mean, something like animation, US streamers, that is still a level above, you know, the biggest. Well, I don't know actually. I don't know how podcast, you know, the really big Goal Hanger podcast, that must be absolutely insane money. But if we were to make an animation, say, we would want to kind of partner with a US, like someone who could bring in some proper. It's really expensive to make that. It's not like a podcast where you can just get some mics and you build a set and then you just go. You know, you're constantly building the set every episode. So there's still quite a high ceiling for stuff. But yeah, that cheap to make TV has kind of been supplanted by even cheaper to make podcasts, right? Podcasts are like the new panel shows, you know, aren't they? The intimacy and the kind of frivolity of like people bantering on a sofa, that's now, 15 years ago, that was Mock the Week to my generation. But now it's, and also I think people used to be going to school and we talk about Ali G that we saw last night. We quote lines from it. And now people are sending like my videos on WhatsApp groups, stag groups. Like it's just the same thing. It's just changed slightly.
And we used to live in a monoculture. Like I can imagine old ladies in offices would turn up on a Friday and speak about Emmerdale that night.
I'm into this monoculture thing.
Yeah.
Have you heard that interview with the guy who manages the Sidemen?
No. Jordan Schwarzenberger. That
Yeah,
guy.
he did an interview on Amol Rajan's podcast, and he talked about this monoculture thing. And yeah, I recommend anyone who's interested in that to listen to that. He's a fucking smart guy, that bloke. And yeah, he's right. It's the reason movies are bad now is because people are trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator. The only thing we have left are these big franchises. And like I saw the new Paul Thomas Anderson film last night. It was the best film I've seen for years. It's so creative and different and distinct, and like, film was really good. But they're so rare now because, like you say, it's not the monoculture has got so small that all they can afford to bank on are these big franchises.
Mm-hmm. But it means creators can have access to audience, whereas
niches are massive. Like who would have thought that a kind of a history podcast that didn't take the history seriously was a serviceable idea, but turns out there's quite a big niche, because in a global market, the niche is huge. So, but I do think there's something that's been lost in that as well. I think it's quite telling that Oasis is like, that's the best gig anyone's ever been to in 2025. And it was probably the best gig we've been to in 1997. there's not really been anything that big, like that binds people together in the same way. It'd be interesting to see people who are 10, 12 now. What are the touchstones of their childhood when they are our age? Would they be able to instantly relate over nostalgia in the way that, like, how old are you?
I'm 27.
Right. You're a bit younger than me, but presumably, I don't know, did you have like Game Boy and N64 and stuff?
Yeah. And then
Or,
like PlayStation 2,
The
PlayStation 3.
Sims, you know, we've got these kind of cornerstone things that things we all went through. It'd be interesting to see whether that carries on.
Or if they'll be reduced to like memes or lines from a TikTok. I see a lot of kids quoting things that I don't quite understand. This kind of...
That was always the way, wasn't it? It's just about whether they're doing it together or whether they've all fragmented, whether they've all grown up in a kind of silos, you know.
Do you think AI will come for comedy
I
in your
don't
world?
fucking know, man. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
The whole AI thing, like it's more just the pace of change is so stupidly fast that in 2 years there could be an entirely different reality. I don't know.
I'm not sure if this is fake news or not, so it might completely be. Apparently, an agent in Hollywood signed like the first AI artist or AI actress, which is ridiculous. And there's apparently like loads of songs in the charts that have been completely like AI generated.
I think what it will do is it will fuel demand for live. Actually, I think live is always so healthy. You know, even at COVID, when everyone thought live's dead, it's all going to be online now. People have such a hunger for communal things. Again, probably why, you know, the Oasis tour has been so fucking massive. And I haven't been, but has been seemingly such a spiritual experience for people. Like, people yearn for those communal things. And so I do think that this has to be some kind of attempt at a monoculture that exists. But I don't know how you kind of reverse engineer the last 5 years. I don't know how you do that.
Or if we ever can.
No, and it's worked out for me. It's great. So but yeah, I guess, yeah, mass appeal. Who's going to have? Is it even worth having mass appeal now? What does that even look like? I guess is the sidemen, but even that you wouldn't know. Most people wouldn't know who they are still.
Yeah, I think you were right. The riches are in the niches, as they say.
Yeah, but that's why, to get back to why. So we booked Bonnie Blue for Invest the Internet. We penciled her. I wasn't that. We'd had porn stars before. I sort of thought maybe we'd made all the jokes we could make, and I was sort of like, I don't know if we'll do. And then in the time between booking her and when we were going to shoot, she basically became monoculture. Like, she broke through to the point where my mum was talking about it, and like people at the gym were talking about it. And you're like, fuck, she has actually, fair play, she's become sort of the most mainstream thing there's been for a while. And so actually we thought, well, we have to do this because there's a kind of cultural wave to surf. You know, we have a chance to maybe be more relevant than we normally are. And I have a feeling that Adam Curtis is going to talk about her in 20 years' time. Do you know what I mean? It's like he's going to be. But the real forces were, you know, all that stuff with footage of her fucking 1,000 guys. Yeah, she's sort of very symbolic of an era where it's like outrage, social media, you know, outrage industrial complex, to use that phrase again, of just extremity, like numbers.
To think she made it on your mate Chris Williamson's self-development podcast, that's when you know she's mainstream.
Yeah, I know. To be fair, I did Chris's self-development podcast the other week with the ratio. It was good. I like Chris a lot, and he's definitely, I think, one of the best episodes we've done on the internet, because he was a fan of the show and he knew exactly what we wanted from a guest and what the fans wanted, which is someone who can laugh at themselves. And I think he normally gives a sense of someone who you wouldn't think they could laugh at themselves, because he's so controlled and like masculine and like, Huel, be better, think, and you know, and so the fact that he could let it all out with us, I think, made for people were really pleasantly surprised by that. Similar to M. Dot, I don't know if you watched that one, the Jamaican. He's not Jamaican. He's from the Isle of Sheppey in Kent, but he speaks with a Jamaican accent. but he charmed us. We love him because he knows it's ridiculous. He doesn't care, you know. And that's I think that's when that show really excels, is when people can prove they don't take themselves too seriously. I think that's the best thing about it. Sorry, we've gone off topic. I don't know what we were talking about.
Bonnie Blue.
Monoculture. Bonnie Blue is monoculture. Yeah, that's.
But
it's true though.
It's strange though. Like, you can openly admit to knowing who Bonnie Blue or Lily Phillips is as a man, whereas like 10 years ago, if you mention a porn star's name, you'd be embarrassed. But everyone knows who they are. Porn's being celebrated. Not to go into this as a topic itself, but
yeah,
like porn as a category has almost become, because of OnlyFans and these celebritized creators like Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue, has become less of a taboo industry because more people are talking about it openly.
Well, it's also just more. It's just ubiquitous now.
Yeah.
Like when I was growing up, it was the thing, the picture loading down the frame, and then when my dad was growing up, he was probably going to some woods and finding a sort of stuck together mag under a rock. You know, it's always been there. It's just that the shame has gone from, or at least the pretense that you're ashamed has gone from it. So yeah, I don't. I kind of think to some extent Bonnie Blue might have ended porn. I don't see where it goes from here. How do you? What else do you do? Like, you've done it, completed it.
It's like the hardest geezer, the guy that ran.
Yeah, she's the hardest puss. Yeah, undeniably the hardest puss, Bonnie Blue.
Finn Taylor, everyone.
Yeah.
You're a veteran in the game, like you said. You started when you were 18.
Yeah.
And really earned your stripes, and then you've found a catalyst, which is your podcast, that has been just incredibly successful over the last few years. If you were to start again with the resources that you have now and the knowledge that you have, you wanted to be a stand-up comedian. You didn't want to follow your mates into investment banking, or if you wanted to really kickstart your career now, what would you do?
If I had the resources I have now,
besides like financial resources, like just your knowledge, understanding of the industry, technology.
I think the problem is that it's all kind of reliant on people. Like, no man is an island and all that. And I feel very lucky to have got Horatio and Vittorio when they were on the way up, and when I could only really pay them in sort of a respect that I'd built up from being around for a bit longer than they had. I, was sending them booking details for other gigs they wanted to do. They're both so brilliant in their own right that I feel so lucky to have found them at the exact moment when I needed those people to help the vision I had. Similarly, a guy called Pete Wells, who runs the company with me, who never gets a shout out, but he's the one who, when we do internet, he builds that entire set digitally. It's filmed on a green screen. He builds the entire fucking set himself. He's got a VFX background, so all the mad effects we can do because of Pete, and even producer Charlie, the absolute mong that produces our podcast off mic, who adds so much to it. It's like all these people. I feel very lucky to have kind of, I don't know, gravitated towards. They've been sucked into the orbit of the whole thing, and kind of the real lesson is that you have to have the energy and the drive and ultimately the ability to do it all yourself, but that's not sustainable, and so you have to get people you trust around you. So I know if it all falls apart at the end of the day, I can edit, I can make clips, I can do all that myself. And I still do that sometimes. Like, we've got like a pyramid where if everyone falls ill, at the very bottom is me, and I can edit an episode if I have to. So I taught myself how to do it. But the better thing to do is to find people that you really trust and get on with, and whose instincts you trust, to make it easier for everyone and to mean that you can move on to the next thing. And so I'd probably try and find those people. That's the first thing I'd do. But then I always think you have to have I always think that's a byproduct of a project. You always have to, again, I think the lesson is always you just do it and see what happens.
Yeah, and if it's good, it'll attract good people.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's bad, then no one sees it, and that's great because it was bad. So like, there's no risk in my head. the more you make and the more success you have, the more risk, because you want to maintain your quality. But if you're building out the team, then you feel like more secure in testing things around and like using them as a squash court and bouncing ideas around. And so it's very much it's building that team that I think is the key to elevating it.
I love it, man. Finn Taylor, the funniest Scottish comedian.
Your words.
Thanks for coming on, man. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
mate. Joy.